Oh.
Oh, there's a wolf child in the closet. Open up and let it free. Oh.
Today on the Anime Movie Podcast, we're talking about Wolf Children.
Wolf children, maybe.
By Mamoru Hosoda.
It's the Anime Movie Podcast with your hosts, Kat and Joe.
I was just reading the Wikipedia page for this director, and apparently he was really inspired by Studio Ghibli and applied to work there and got rejected, but was offered a rejection with praise from Hayao Miyazaki.
Oh, okay, so yeah, you're cool. Not good enough.
Yeah.
But you're cool. But, good luck out there, kid. We're not going to employ you, but see you out there, maybe.
But he studied oil painting in university. And he was actually set to direct Howl's Moving Castle.
Oh, really?
And then because of difference in, creative direction, Studio Ghibli wasn't into his idea and he got replaced early on.
Wow. Well, is that when he got the letter from?
No, it was much later.
Okay.
Much later.
So it was like he worked his ass off and was like, see, I was good enough.
Yeah.
And then they're like, all right, we'll have you direct Howl's Moving Castle. Was like, yes, I'm going to prove everyone wrong at Studio Ghibli.
And they're like,
and then they're like, actually, you know what? We were right 10 years ago or whenever we rejected your ass. Have fun directing Wolf Children, though, bro.
But, his big films, make a lot of the, sort of top 100 lists.
Have fun directing the Digimon movie. Piece of garbage.
Well, apparently that's how he got Studio Ghibli's attention, that they really liked his animation and work on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because I think I talked about it before, but Digimon movie was the first anime movie I ever watched because I was into Digimon. And obviously I didn't know that this was, his first movie or that he was anybody at the time.
Yeah.
But I did recognize the animation style because we've previously, before we started doing the podcast, we watched The Girl Who Leapt Through Time.
Yeah.
And now watching this, the animation style is very the same, and it's a lot different than the Digimon series animation style. The Digimon series animation style is a lot brighter, and there's, shine on characters' hairs, and their eyes are bigger and stuff. And from what I've noticed in the movies that we've seen of his, is that the color palette seems, at least in the characters, the colors are a lot more muted, at least in my opinion.
I think you can really see his background in oil painting with a lot of the hand painted backgrounds. You see a lot, and there's obviously CGI that's kind of woven throughout, but I don't find it. I mean, there are parts in this one that made me feel slightly ill, watching it. But I think a lot of the time when it's used pretty well. I think sometimes in other films it can stand out like a sore thumb and be really distracting.
Yeah.
But I feel like he does a fairly good job of weaving it in.
Yeah, there were times in the beginning of the movie where it was very apparent and kind of I don't like looking at this. And I was hoping that it wasn't going to be like that for the rest of the movie. And then it wasn't.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about the animation in a little bit, but we're in our non-spoilery chatter about the first couple minutes here. The non-spoilery chatter about Wolf Children. We just got finished watching it, and this has been a long time coming for us because the way that we decide which movies we watch is we set up a tournament. The
way I'd say it.
Yeah, Kat pronounces it tournament. I say tournament. You decide who's right. And I bring 2 movies that I own, and Kat brings 2 movies that she owns, and we flip coins and see which one wins. And Wolf Children has been in the tournament several times, and it has never won until today. A triumph. I feel like we need to get a celebratory cake or something because it's been a long time coming for wolf children, and coming out of it, I feel okay about it.
Yeah.
I'm decently amped about it.
Yeah, I got worried at a couple moments. I was like, oh no, he's gonna hate this. But for me, there are things that I like very much about this film, and there are other things that fall a little flat for me. I think if I saw it when I was younger, if I saw it as like a teenager or like younger than that, I would probably absolutely adore it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some sentimentality in it that goes like very slightly too far for me, and I don't know, sometimes it might be the dubbing, it might be, the way they chose to translate some things that were like a little bit eye rolly for me. But for the most part, I think it's such a great exploration of what it must be like to raise kids.
Yeah.
And also, exploring identity and all the problems that I would have never considered with being raised as wolf children, as people who can turn into wolves and back into people at will.
Yeah. I want to call this a slice of life movie,
Yeah.
but if your life was you were raising children who are also wolves.
Yeah. Yeah. There's like that little bit of magical realism, but that's the only point of magical realism that kind of comes into this film, and everything else is very slice of life.
Yeah, there are a lot of for me it was, there were some sentimental moments where I was like, oh, that must be nice. I did feel like emotions and like starting to roll up because, at the heart of it, it's a movie about a mother that's raising her kids. And
Yeah, who is so patient and so resilient.
yeah, resilient, patient, understanding, caring, and just like the best mom ever.
And she's dealing with so much shit
Yeah.
throughout so much of this movie.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in spoilers, but
Yeah.
I liked it. It gets, really sentimental and emo at some points, and it's like, oh, I'm okay with that, a little bit of that. That was
Yeah.
fine.
It belongs there. I mean, if you're raising kids, and that's what this whole story is about, it's a story that covers the relationship of the parents and then all the way through the kids' childhood up to kind of becoming teenagers. So it covers the whole spectrum of how it came to be that they were conceived all the way up until the point where they're kind of leaving home.
Some fun facts here for you. This was the second highest grossing film in Japan on its debut weekend, and it beat out Pixar's Brave.
Wow.
Which was, that's not that great of a Pixar film. It's okay.
No.
But it's about, I feel like it's kind of like about a similar thing. Where people, in Brave, I think that some people can turn into like bears or something, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong. But this was the fifth highest grossing movie in Japan in the whole year of 2012. So it's a pretty big success. It's got really good reviews. Like, it's critically acclaimed.
Yeah. People
really enjoy this. I mean, it won a bunch of awards too. It won the 2013 Japan Academy Prize for Animation of the Year. Oslo Films from the South Festival main award, New York International Children's Film Festival, a bunch of stuff. It is a highly regarded film, and I can see why. I mean, it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. There were certain parts of it that were really goofy to me, and like I was laughing throughout it just because of like the sheer weirdness of it. But I've seen weirder things. I've seen worse things. This wasn't like offensively bad, but it didn't like blow my mind or anything, but it was good.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting how it's broken up into very sort of specific parts. It goes in stages. And I feel like the first section of this movie could potentially not be there, or it could be part of the film. It was like a choice that somebody made at some point, but if you didn't have the beginning of it, you could still understand the rest of the movie. And we can talk about that more in like the spoiler section, but I do feel like the beginning of this film felt like somewhere between A Furry Wet Dream and the beginning of Up.
Yeah. The beginning of Up was like so short though, and it packed so
Oh
much.
yeah, it doesn't pack the same kind of punch.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. But here's a little quote from the director. When asked about why he was inspired to make this film, he was asking someone about raising children. And the person said that raising children is like having a monster or a wild animal in your house. And then he was like,
Interesting.
Wolf children.
Yeah, because you're basically dealing with a mom who's trying to figure out how to be a mom on her own with no guidance whatsoever. And then also at the same time learning how to be a pet owner, because you're dealing with slightly more mess and things being chewed on and all the sort of like animal stuff that you deal with having pets.
Yeah.
At the same time is also trying to learn how to be a parent without the support of a partner, without the support of your own parents.
Yeah, it was funny because this isn't a spoiler or anything, but a certain scene in the movie, the mom is like reading books on how to raise children, and then as soon as she closes that book, she opens a book that's like how to live with wolves.
Yeah.
That's just pretty funny. I thought that was funny. There's some funny parts of this.
Yeah, there's absolutely there's a lot of good humor, and I think if it didn't have the good humor to sort of balance out some of the more sentimental or melancholy notes of it, that this wouldn't be as enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really glad that they did kind of explore that stuff, but I think they did such a great job of exploring all of the things that could come up as potential problems.
Yeah, I was thinking, because I was just thinking of so many more problems that could have come up and like that just didn't come up, and I'm like, well, she's lucky that didn't come up,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also weird too because like this is the first movie like Hosoda established his own studio to make this film. So he got rejected from Ghibli, but you know what? He made his own shit and he seems to be doing pretty good.
Yeah, he's got a lot of heavy hitters.
Yeah.
And even coming out with Mirai in 2018, that was nominated for an American Academy Award last year.
So good on you, buddy.
Yeah.
Persevering. You knew just because you got rejected from one place doesn't mean that your dreams are over.
Just like the main character of our film here. Shall we get into...
Wait, what did she get rejected from?
Spoilers? We can talk about it in spoilers.
Oh, okay, good point. Spoiler time. They wouldn't spoil this, right?
Oh, God!
You can't spoil this, right?
Don't spoiler talk, anime movie podcast, spoiler talk.
What I mean is that she's resilient. They're trying to kind of make her feel rejected in the countryside, and she goes out and moves there, and she doesn't stop. She keeps going.
Yeah. I feel like we kind of need to talk about the first part of the movie in order to like really get going on like what everything that goes on. So, lady.
So you want to do it? You want to do it by the full plot?
We don't have to do the full plot, but like we need to establish like the characters at first anyway.
Okay.
Like at the beginning of the movie, our main character Hana is in college, correct? University?
Yeah, I think it's university.
And she sees a guy in her class that she didn't recognize before, and it turns out that she's like got the hots for this dude, and they start dating. It turns out this dude can turn into a wolf.
And he's also not actually enrolled in the university. He's trying to get an education by auditing classes. So she's sneaking him into the library and letting him borrow a textbook and all that.
He works for like a moving company and all this shit. And then she's like in love with him. And then he's like, well, guess what? I got the secret. I'm a fucking wolf too. And she's like, that's cool. I'm cool with that.
The stars in that scene were animated so beautifully.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Do you fucking mind?
I had a tickle. Oh, God. Tickle in my throat. I'm sorry. It's very tickly.
So, yeah. Dude's a wolf. Part wolf. It seems like he can transform into the wolf. It's not like uncontrollable. He can pick and choose when he wants to do it.
Yeah.
right? And so yeah, she fucks the wolf. This is the part that was weird to me, all right? So he reveals that he's a wolf, and she's like, I'm totally cool with it. And he's like, okay. And then they fuck, but he doesn't turn back to the human form. They fuck and he's a wolf.
It's definitely implied that they are going to.
Yeah.
And I think it's like, and the ergonomics are slightly confusing, especially the way it starts out, because like, she's naked and they're going in for a kiss, but she just kind of presses her face against the side of his snout. It's like, this doesn't really work in the same way.
Dude, have a little bit of class. Turn back to be a human for the lady, please.
I think part of that though is that sort of metaphorical. She's seeing him for who he really is, and he's being totally vulnerable. So this is a moment of intimacy where you don't have to hide who you are.
Yeah, metaphorically, yeah, but visually, me watching this movie, I was like, yo, this lady's about to fuck a wolf. I also love that the guy was like, all the wolves are portrayed as is like full moons and we eat everybody and we're terrible creatures. He's like, I'm not like that, bro. And she's like, yeah, I know. And then they get the fucking.
Well, I mean, we hear that in the narration, which is done by Yuki, who's the daughter, and she's the narrator throughout the entire thing, as though she's looking back on it as an adult or something, and she's telling the whole story of how her parents fell in love. I mean, the thing he talks about is how his ancestors were some kind of a wolf that died off like 100 years ago. He might be kind of the last of his kind. So these kids that are going to be born might be, again, sort of the last of their kind that might carry on that half wolf, half human situation.
Yeah. I think the question that needs to be asked, Catherine, would you fuck a wolf man? Okay, here we go. So you've been seeing a person for like a year.
Okay.
And you had no idea that he was part wolf.
And I'm
but now
madly in love.
You're in love with this guy.
Right.
And then one day out of nowhere, he's just like, Kat, I have a secret that I need to tell you, and I hope you don't freak out about it. And you're like, yeah, sure, what is it? And then he turns into a wolf.
Yes.
Would you still stay with that person?
I'd definitely stay with him.
Yeah.
I mean, I might be really honest with them and let them know that I might have to work my way up to the actually having sex with a wolf situation.
You haven't had sex with him? Oh, okay. You've only had sex with him in his human form at this point.
Right.
Okay.
But you're in a relationship with somebody, a sexual relationship, and you'll get to a point where it's like, okay, we've done this a lot. It might not be as exciting. Let's like try something new, or like add something.
Let's spice it up.
Let's spice it up.
I'll
you know
fuck
what?
The wolf.
Perfect opportunity. And you could, if he has like it seemed like he could change just a little bit, or he could go like full pelt.
Yeah. Can you just make your head a wolf?
Yeah. Maybe you could just, add in little bits so you ease your way into it. That might really extend the interest in the sex life, potentially. You're like, let's start out with, you just have a tail.
Yeah.
All right, how about this time just be a little hairier? Let's see how I deal with that.
I would have so many questions. If like the woman that I've been dating just was like, guess what? I'm a wolf. I'd be like, all right, we need to have a seat. I have many, many, many questions. Many, many, many questions. And depending on how you answer these questions determines whether or not I will stay with you. That's where I would be.
I thought it's interesting that, you cut from the scene where he's revealing this, and it's like maybe in a park or something, really, really beautiful starry sky. And then the next thing you see is she's naked in a bed and he's still a wolf. And I forget what he says there, but he says something like, do you want to leave me? Because you know this information about me now, like you're shaking. And she says no, that she doesn't want to leave him. But
also like, Are you going to say no to a bloodthirsty wolf in the bed with you while you're nude? Absolutely not. It'll kill you.
Why would you wait to ask her if she's cool with this and if she's going to leave you when clearly you've gotten to the point where you've undressed her?
Yeah. I mean, it would be a shock.
Sure.
Okay, say that you're the wolf person.
Okay.
How would you go about divulging that secret to your SO?
I think that, you might start floating things to begin with. You might be like,
so you like dogs?
Yeah.
First, are you a dog person?
Start with the dog person.
Oh, you're a cat person? This isn't going to work out.
Then start to be like, how'd you feel if I stopped shaving? Just just really, really ease in.
How far can you throw a frisbee? Would it be cool if I chased that?
See how into doggy style he is,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Would it be the first thing that's like on a dating profile? Like, look, getting this out of the way. First things first, I am a wolf person.
I just want to be real with you.
If that's a deal breaker, swipe fucking left, okay? I don't need all of you wolf-hating motherfuckers swiping on me. And then the second I tell you I'm a wolf, then, all of a sudden I'm busy this week.
Oh, no. I would hide that shit for a while. Especially, if you think about it as high stakes as it suggests here, that it's basically you'll be ostracized, you could be killed, you could be, there's all these sorts of things. You're not just going to just immediately tell anyone who walks by, like, hey, you, I just want to let you know, I'm a wolf person.
Guess what? Fucking wolf. Yeah, I don't know why people would be ostracized, like the wolf people would be ostracized. I don't think they'd be ostracized necessarily. I think that they'd probably be taken in for scientific experimentation, and I could understand why you wouldn't want that.
You don't think that's ostracizing?
No, that's not like, when I think of ostracized, it's like the general public is like, you're a freak, get out of here.
I still think a lot of that would happen.
Yeah, probably, but I think a lot more people would be like, that's fucking cool. I would, if I knew, like, if my buddy was a wolf person, I'd be like, yo, that's cool as fuck. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, but also if you spent a ton of your life as a scientific experiment,
Exactly. Yeah, that wouldn't be fun.
And that wouldn't help you feel more socialized.
I don't know. There's a lot of people that, like, are down with being experimented on, like, people that sign up for medical trials and shit like that.
Yeah, but people usually get paid for those.
Maybe the wolf person
and they're voluntary.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, this probably wouldn't be voluntary.
Yeah.
They'd take them away, but I don't know if that's necessarily ostracized. I feel like ostracized is like everyone hates you and you're like rejected from society. I don't know if you'd be rejected necessarily from society.
Being pulled out of society and being made to, like, forced to be under scientific experiments, kind of.
I don't know. Maybe.
It's kind of the attention that you really don't want, because if you want to be able to fit in or to find your place in the world and be able to function normally, you can't have that kind of attention. And I think it would be very challenging to...
You could be a super famous celebrity. You could act in movies whenever they need wolves. And you're like, hey, will you be a wolf real quick? You know what I mean?
That doesn't mean that it'll be easy to make friends or do any of the sort of normal human things that you might want to do, especially if you got picked up as a kid or as a teenager. So you never really got to fully have, a normal childhood. You just got pulled into the movie business and having all these tabloids and...
Yeah, it's just like a coked out wolf person, like Justin Bieber, like... child star.
Exactly.
She's like, I got so much fucking demons, man. You don't know what they did to me. I was a fucking wolf child.
Chris, we've talked in the past about how we feel about fame and attention and how you'd be super into it. oh God, I hit my pop filter.
Yeah.
Wagging my finger at you. And how I'd be super uncomfortable with being that famous.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, dude, imagine living with a wolf person. It's like extra security. You hear a bump in the night. Fucking, hey, honey, check it out. You're the wolf. Fucking bite this motherfucker. I'm just a man.
I guess it depends on your temperament, because when the kids are born, Ame is so frightened and described as being kind of a sickly kid.
Yeah,
and
he's very timid.
barely eats, is timid, doesn't really like the whole nature situation, likes comforts.
Mm-hmm.
And Yuki is more boisterous and is all about finding bugs and skeletons. And I kind of like that. That seems like a little bit of a role reversal in sort of gender archetypes of kids, which I liked. I thought that worked nicely.
Yeah, that was cool. I did enjoy that part. That Yuki's like all about like, I want to go out and explore. I want to go out and see the world.
Yeah.
And Ame's a little bitch boy. But he's the younger one. And like, it was also cute that like Yuki was like, I'm going to take care of my little brother through a lot of like their early development. She's like, come on, let's go. And she's taking care of him. She's like a good big sister.
Yeah.
But what we failed to mention is number one, that Hana gets knocked up by the wolf guy. And
I think we were kind of clear on that.
Yeah, no, we weren't clear enough. Okay. They bang, and then she gets pregnant, and she doesn't want to go to the hospital because she's afraid that like we were talking about, that her kids will. She was afraid, and this is the quote in the movies, that they might come out as pups.
Yeah.
I was like, excellent fear. Your kids would definitely get taken in to be scientific experiments then, which would rob them of a normal childhood. But also, if they come out as pups at home, what the fuck are you going to do then?
I mean, not deal with the fact they might be immediately taken away from her for scientific experiments.
Yeah, but then wouldn't it kind of fuck with your head that you just gave birth to wolf pups from human vagina?
I mean, I think it's shocking that a human can come out of a human vagina. I think that it's the whole thing is a traumatic experience, I'm sure. But there's actually plenty of people who do give birth at home, not in a hospital.
Well, yeah. But none of them are giving birth to puppies.
To be fair, she saw her lover turn into a wolf, and she was like, well, that's kind of shocking, but I'm going with this. I think the fact that she's mentally prepared for the potential of having puppies, that in and of itself might give her a leg up if it did happen.
A leg up.
Sure. Both ankles and straps, both legs up.
A leg up? What, she peeing on a fire hydrant?
Tonight, Joe will be playing the dad.
Oh, there's going to be lots of jokes on this bad boy.
Yeah.
This was unintentionally super funny at certain points, I feel like, at least in my mind. But, I have a weird sense of humor, like just looking at it. And, I do comedy. I'm a comedian. And just, I just couldn't keep some of the jokes quiet. And, like, I was just cracking them all the movie long.
At some point, I had to stop encouraging you.
Yeah.
I was like, he's just going to do this constantly if I keep acknowledging this.
Yeah. So, yeah, they give birth, and then eventually the dad eats it. It's not really...
That made it sound like he eats the puppy.
Oh, no. He doesn't eat the kids. He fucking screws the pooch.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, and the narrator, Yuki, is kind of saying that nobody knows why, he went out that night to go hunting or what was going through his head, but maybe it was because, he just had another newborn. The son, Ame, had just been born, and maybe there was an instinct to go hunt for fresh meat. And, they show him in kind of an equivalent of the Los Angeles River, but in Japan.
It's like a ravine embankment type thing.
Yeah, but it's kind of in the middle of a city, like a canal.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah,
it's a
yeah,
canal.
yeah.
And there's feathers on him, which we've only ever seen him with feathers on him when he had brought home a kill. It was like a pheasant or something. And you don't see any blood, but so it could be implied that he's drowned, but I think it's more likely that maybe he was shot.
Yeah, they're not very clear on how he died.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, well, we just see that it's dead.
And then Joe could not stop laughing.
Well, I couldn't stop
about
laughing.
the fact that he was loaded into the back of a trash truck.
No. That's not what was funny about it. Okay, this is what's so funny about it. So the mom and the two kids are looking for the wolf dad, and then they find him in the ravine. Tragic. Dad's dead. If they would have just ended it there, I would have been like, oh man, that really fucking sucks. But what happens afterwards is like animal pest control or something go into the river while Hana is like bawling her eyes out. They fish out the wolf dad. Also, I'm calling him wolf dad because they never name him.
That's true.
So
Although they do have an altar to him later that's a driving license, which you think would have his name on it. And
Yeah.
every time it popped up, I was like, his name is on that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even in the credits, it
Yeah.
just says father.
Yeah,
So
I knew that.
So the wolf dad is dead. Pest control garbage collectors are fishing him out of this ravine. Hana's like beside herself. And they take him, they put him in a bag, and then they chuck him in the back of a dump truck.
He's already laughing again. This is ridiculous.
And Hana runs over and she's like, no, like screaming. And I was just picturing her being like, that's my husband. How fucking crazy.
This is
The dump
like
truck people were like, what the fuck is this crazy?
this is like the really fine line between comedy and absolute tragedy. Because, I mean, what you're saying is if they'd cut sooner, that to you that would be sadder and that they would never be playing a comedic moment. And for me, I was like, oh my God, this is ripping my heart out because they're throwing him away like trash. And this is the love of her life who's just died and she's just had a baby. And now she has two kids that she's raising on her own. And she had no help from anyone anywhere to be able to do it, trying to figure it out as they go along. And her husband's being tossed out like the trash and there's nothing she can do about it or nowhere she can go to. She can't even bury him.
I was cracking up. Just the thought of how crazy she would have looked. It's been like, no. And the garbage people were like, what the fuck, lady? It's a wolf. You don't want a wolf in our city. Like, it's like, what is... And just the thought of her being like, that's my husband or whatever. And being like, what the fuck is wrong with you? This crazy lady. Everything that you said afterwards, like, they show her afterwards raising the kids, and I literally wrote down, I feel bad for her because it's like she has to do all this stuff alone. She's raising not only children but wolves.
Yeah.
Like, I felt so bad, and she couldn't get a job really because she didn't feel comfortable with leaving her kids with babysitters because they could turn into wolves and then the jig is up and then they get taken away or whatever. There's a couple of things like child services comes and they're like, what's up with your fucking kids, dude? Like, we haven't seen them get vaccinated. We don't know that they've never been to a doctor. We don't even know what these kids look like. So we need to fucking see these kids. And she's like, get out of here.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, this is tough to watch. Like, it was hard. I felt
I
so
feel like
bad for her.
You really, really feel for her in a lot of these situations. And I think that's part of the reason why they have that whole section on the top where you kind of learn how they fell in love and how they met each other. Because I think that, I mean, of all the like films that we've seen, I buy their relationship more than I buy so many of the other relationships that we've seen build. Like, I really believe it.
No, they established this relationship in a short amount of time, and they established it really well.
Yeah. And, I want to backtrack just for a second to say, like, the use of silence used in that scene when he dies, I think is used really, really effectively. you know, and they use silence in a couple of parts, but sometimes it's just a total absence of music, but you can still hear sound design. But this was like absolute silence, which is that kind of like my heart stopped beating in this moment that changed my whole life. And I thought that really packed a punch. But I love how this film shows the passage of time.
Yes.
Because it uses a lot of different means to do it. You know, while they're dating, you know, you see the same places over and over again, but sometimes there's like autumn leaves and sometimes there's Christmas lights. And I liked how the Christmas lights weren't done very well. You know, they wasn't like perfectly even. You know, it had this like really homey touch. And I was just like, oh, I appreciate that. Because somebody thought like, oh, how would a shopkeeper do this if they were, you know, they weren't like super artistic or anything. It's not going to look amazing or even. I kind of love that as like a little touch of realism. And then as she's starting to raise the kids, you know, you get back into the autumn leaves. And I think, you know, so much of her being pregnant and so much of like the early childhood of the kid is done in montage. But you get these like little pieces of scenes where you just get a feeling, not just empathy for her and her situation, but these little moments of humor, and you kind of see how difficult some things would be. And it's just offering up all these like, oh, and what if this, and what if this, and this might happen, you know?
Yeah. And another thing, like you were talking about the passage of time and how they animate that. I made mention of that in my notes too, because they did it in so many unique ways. Like even so after the dad dies and she's explaining to the kids, like, you need to be fucking human beings around human beings, and then we can go out into the woods or something. You can play around as wolves or whatever, or even in our apartment you can be wolves. And they animate this through they animate this lesson that she's teaching them through like a child's drawing,
and it's
of
almost like
them.
she's drawn them maybe to show them.
Yeah, and I thought that was super cool and really cute.
And it's done like it's in crayon. It's so cute.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then like all of her neighbors are pissed off because number one, the baby's crying. Number two, when they become wolves, they're howling. And dude, there's so many problems that she runs into.
So many problems.
And a lot of them are just like unreasonable. Like the guy that comes in, he's like, shut your fucking baby up. I'm like, and she's like, it's a baby. They cry. He's like, I don't care. How am I going to sleep? I was like, dude, that's a little unreasonable.
But would you really put that past somebody? Let's say you're in small apartments and the walls are thin, and they did say like sometimes Ame would cry all night.
Yeah, I mean, would you do that? I don't think I would.
Of course, I wouldn't do it, but I'm saying people would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been told that apparently the sound of babies crying is much, much worse for women to hear. And they have a biological need to just make it stop. And it almost doesn't have anything to do with empathy anymore. They just need to make it not happen anymore, which of course, you know, evolutionarily will be very, very helpful.
The men's biological reaction is to kill that baby.
Yeah, just kill it. That's
stab.
Apparently men have a very similar reaction to women crying.
Yeah.
That they just need to make it
kill.
stop. Jesus.
Hear a woman crying, just bloodlust.
Back to the movie.
Go berserk.
I also thought that it was really cute that Yuki had the quirk of whenever she got grumpy or was kind of throwing a tantrum as a toddler, that she became a wolf pup and started running around, or showing, you know, a time where she really wanted to go on a walk. And then when she finally gave in, you know, she was jumping around like a dog with the zoomies before you'd like go for a walk.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really great. I think we should probably move on to talking about them being out in the countryside when they decide to go that direction.
Yeah. So after like the child services come and like everyone's kind of fed up with them living in that apartment building because the lady's like, there's no pets. You can't have pets here. And Hana's like, we don't have pets. And at that point, I was like, just tell her to come in and look around. You know, there's no fucking pets here. There's no evidence of pets here, aside from, I don't know, maybe like some torn up books because the kids are wolves. But,
and you get the impression that there's like a level of paranoia that she's experiencing. And you're seeing that with like, you know, people turning their heads and like looking at her and stuff. So you're really getting the experience that she feels so trapped and feels in danger all the time and just wants to protect her kids. So she goes out to the countryside and starts looking at places.
They buy a huge dilapidated house, and it's like, you really got to do some fixing up, and she does it. And I was like, damn, this lady's a fucking beast, dude.
Did any of this like really make you want to like do manual labor?
It made me want to move out of Los Angeles and purchase a giant house in like rural Idaho. Like,
Oh,
you,
God.
you realize how much money, if we could do our jobs remotely in like fucking, let's say, Biloxi, Mississippi, we could own houses. Like, we could be home owners and our mortgage payments would be less than our rent. That's what this movie made me think of. And I was like, damn.
Of course, a lot of rent prices are much higher than mortgages.
Yeah. But if I had the opportunity to like own a house, and especially a house that's like as big as this house that they buy, like, now I wouldn't want to buy a fixer-upper like that and have to do all the work like Hana does. Hana is reflooring. She is re-roofing. She is putting in new doors and all.
Yeah.
Like, she is a one-woman wrecking crew.
It is wild. Yeah, I love how she keeps sort of unearthing, little beautiful details about the house as it gets cleaned up, because it was abandoned, and you start to see that the interior of the sink is really beautiful. It has like beautiful stones that are sparkling, and there's little details in the glass that you never saw because it was covered in dirt.
Just need a little love.
Yeah.
It shows like she's very dedicated, and like all the townspeople in this countryside are like, yeah, she's never going to make it here. She came here from the city, and everybody that always comes from the city, they stay for like a month, and then they're like, no, there's no convenience stores out here, and then they leave. So everyone's just doubting her.
She's tenacious.
Yeah, they're doubting her tenacity. They're testing her gangster. And she's like, bitch, I'm fucking gangster as shit. I fixed up this house. I'm determined to live here because my children are regular children.
I think she's such like a cockeyed optimist in so many ways. I feel like she's not somebody who has any level of hubris, and she doesn't go around stamping her little feet and being like, she doesn't go fighting anybody and go like, no, look what I've done.
Yeah.
I'm so great for having done this. She's just like, this is just what needs to get done. I'm doing it. This is what I need in order to give my kids the best life that they can have. And I promised my husband I would.
The stuff that she does, like all of the labor that she gets into, like she starts farming later on. She does her due diligence. Like, she goes to the library. She reads a bunch of books about it. She's constantly reading books about, like, we first see her reading books about how to raise children, how to raise wolves. Then it's like she's trying to figure out how to rebuild a house. And she's reading all these books on how to farm and stuff. She does her due diligence. But I think that the thing that she mentions, and I also found this absolutely hilarious, her name is Hana, and her dad named her Hana because it means like smiling all the time or something.
Well, Hana means flower.
Or why was she talking about how she smiles all the time at the beginning of the movie?
She was saying that there was some flower in their garden that always seemed so resilient, and would always even shine brightly in whatever weather or situation, etc.
Yeah, and her wasn't it her father was like, always, like, you're always smiling, or he told her always smile no matter what because blah blah blah. And then she says something like, yeah, even when he died at the funeral, and I was smiling. I was like, God damn. Like,
She's like, I was smiling the whole time.
You can take a second to be sad, But yeah,
probably did seem like a total psycho in that situation.
Absolutely. And she talks, she's like, yeah, I got scolded because it wasn't the correct time to be smiling. But yeah, she is very optimistic. She is very determined. She is going to make this work no matter what.
And very down to earth as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even when the old man at Nirasaki, her neighbor, who's very much doubting her abilities to stay living in the country, and he's being like, you're never going to make it here, kid. Even he, I think, becomes impressed by her determination.
Yeah, and that's why he starts helping her out so much. But I feel like this must be a Japanese male archetype, that comes into films or is in the imagination of Japanese people. It's this character who like seems really, really cold on the outside, can even seem mean or irritable, but actually kind of has a heart of gold and is trying to help and really cares deeply, but like never ever shows that. Like you see that with like Kamaji in Spirited Away, and you see it with like Mitsuda in Colorful, the older brother who always seems like a dick, but actually really cares. Oh, and just doing all these like things to try and help in various ways.
Yeah, I know that in the romantic archetypes, it is known, at least for female characters, as a tsundere, where it's like a person that comes off as cold-hearted, but secretly like they really care about the other person. It's like it's tough love, basically. And I thought it was pretty funny. Like that old guy just keeps walking by and like trashing Hana. And she's like sweating and bleeding on her hands and shit. And she's trying to plant all these plants that keep dying and all these vegetables because she's poor now. And she's like, we need to grow our own crops or we're gonna fucking die.
Yeah.
And then the guy just walking, he's like, damn, tomatoes are never gonna fucking grow like that, lady. And she's like, ha 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 ha. He just walks by, casually throwing shade like all the time.
So like the kids start to kind of catch on to the fact that, the sort of more negative connotations of hiding their identity as being wolves, especially Ame starts to latch onto it. And Yuki really wants to go to school, so she starts going to school, but she's having problems because she likes catching snakes and, filling shoe boxes with, animal skeletons and mummified lizards, apparently. And I love all the moments of like the girls just continuously screaming and her just being like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah,
like,
what,
these are the things that I like.
You guys like jewelry? That's cool. Here's a dead lizard skeleton. Why are you screaming?
And it made me a little bit sad that she kind of, I mean, I guess you have to if you really want to be able to fit in. If there's something that you do that people think is super weird,
you don't have to. You can be a goth.
Sure, you can have no friends.
You can be the one goth in the countryside.
And you know what?
And then she would be ostracized.
Yes. No, you don't have to. And I certainly didn't, which is why I had no friends as a child.
No, Kat.
No, I did. There just weren't a lot of them. I was a kind of weird kid. But in order for her to feel like she has her pack, quote unquote,
nice. You're getting in on the fucking wolf and dog puns.
Although she literally says that in the film. So, because of the fact that that's what she wants, and she wants to wear a cuter dress, and she wants to be a popular girl and do the school thing, and more she wants to be a human and wants to fit in. That means that she does kind of have to shed that stuff. But I thought it was kind of sad that you have to. I mean, they're talking about hiding your identity, and you kind of want the movie to be like, that's always bad, and this is kind of saying, well, sometimes if you want to fit in certain places or have certain kinds of social relationships, you have to.
See, I didn't think of it as, I mean, at that point I did think of it as like hiding your identity, but I thought of it more of like choosing a path of identity, because Ame, as she's going to school, he becomes more interested in like nature and learning about the wild and everything, because the Hana takes a job at a nature place at what, I don't know what it would.
Like a conservation center?
Yes, the conservation center. And he starts to take more of an interest in that. And she chooses, basically the crux of it is like she chooses to go to like the human route, and he goes the wolf route. He identifies as a wolf, she identifies as a human, and they actually have like a fucking Donnybrook, a kerfuffle, a a bit of fisticuffs about it.
In wolf form.
Yeah, because, you know, Ame doesn't want to go to school anymore. And Yuki does. And she's like, will you fucking stop this wolf shit? You're a human. And he's like, I'm not a human. I'm a fucking wolf. You're not human either. You're a wolf. And then they have a tussle.
Yeah, I think, you know, I with having a single parent, you know, Ame's kind of looking for some kind of a male figure to have in his life, or at least a teacher to have in his life. And they're both kind of seeking out role models or other ways to get ideas of how to be. You know, because they only get that information from one person. A lot of school, I think, or having conversations with people are that sort of like, wait, your parents don't do what? You know, like these little things that you learn are strange. And you could come, oh yeah, no, that's weird. You're right. I would never do that thing. You know? And you know, later you might get, you know, closer to people and be like, oh yeah, this is actually totally a thing that we always did in my house. You know, and I feel like they're kind of figuring those things out. But there's a nice moment when they do have that sort of kerfuffle where they're really highlighting the divergence of the two paths, but also showing that, you know, both kids feel like it's the best thing to be doing, and they both try to encourage the other one to come onto their path. And I think this is a nice metaphor for being like, they do care about each other, but at this moment, like, they have chosen.
Yeah. And it's also like, you can see both sides.
Yeah.
Where both of them have an argument that you're like, yeah, I see that. Yeah, and I also see that. That makes sense. And it shows like you can do whatever. Like, you know, you can be a wolf if you want, cat. You know, if you want to come forward and say anything on a podcast, breaking news. If you want to open up about your wolf nature.
What did you think about the wolf at the conservation center?
So, yeah, as Hana's working at the conservation center, they have a wolf like in captivity, and she wants to take Ame to be like, hey, maybe you can learn something from this wolf. And it's basically saying that like the wolf was born in captivity, and basically that wolf doesn't even know how to be a wolf.
Yeah, it's that moment where you find out like, oh, that wolf has been in that kind of cement ground with bars, with people looking at it, you know, its entire life. It doesn't know how to be a wolf.
Well, don't they say that once they release zoo animals into the wild, they just die very quickly because they don't know how to sustain themselves? They've been being fed the whole time.
You know, this morning I heard, like, that is very true. That is often what happens. It's like releasing cats or dogs into the wild who have always lived in a home and had food put into a bowl. They don't know how to dog and cat in the wild. Those are domesticated animals. But there was a story about somebody in Colombia who had been like a drug lord, and he died. But he had hippos. He had pet hippos, which, by the way, are more dangerous than most of the animals that we are afraid of.
Oh, yeah.
Like bears and sharks, all of that. Hippos kill more people on a yearly basis than most of the animals that we imagine could kill us in the wild. And they just release these hippos into the wild. And totally invasive species. It's do not naturally occur in Colombia in any way whatsoever. However, for some reason, they fit really well into the ecosystem and have actually helped bring balance back to the ecosystem that was not there before because of what humans had done and because of certain kinds of animals had died off, or, you know, they bred too much and didn't have any predators that might, you know, kill them. I don't remember the full details, but I literally heard about that this morning, so I thought I'd mention it.
Score one for human intervention. You know, usually, you know, when we
it's
pluck
more
animals,
like just human neglect.
Yeah. Well, I actually heard a while back, and I could be a little foggy on the details, but I think that they reintroduced wolves into Yellowstone or something, and they just fucked shit up. Like, they overtook that
Oh,
shit.
really?
Speaking of wolves, they overtook that shit and like killed off a bunch of the species that were there. And then so they were like, we gotta get some of these fucking wolves out of here. Like we gotta get them out because they are fucking shit up.
You know, in like the 1920s when Yosemite was just kind of getting founded and there were more and more people going to the park, they decided that the black bears were kind of a nuisance, especially the ones that were more aggressive. And so they started moving the more aggressive black bears away from Yosemite, and they put them in the Angeles National Forest, which at the time was not close to any homes or any populations of people, and now have these massive neighborhoods surrounding the forest where the descendants of extraordinarily aggressive bears from Yosemite now live. So this got real tangential, but I felt like it made me really, really sad, like that wolf, especially when Ame kind of tries to talk to him and connect with him, and there just doesn't seem to be anything there. And he talks about how sad the wolf's eyes seem. And I feel like it's one of those moments when they could have really driven home a point about putting animals into captivity or something like that, but they didn't. They left it really, really subtle, but it was also
which I liked.
which was also super, super sad. If you've ever seen an incredibly depressed animal at a zoo, you'll know exactly that feeling.
Yeah, but like I liked how they handled that and like showed that part of what could potentially befall a wolf.
Yeah, and so Ame's been going up into the mountains more and more, instead of being, afraid of everything and afraid of bugs and wanting to go back to the city. He's really finding his place there. And then he tells his mom one day that he's been learning from a sensei.
I was worried at this point.
Right?
Where he was like, I've been not going to school. I've been going up in the mountains and I've been seeing this older dude that's teaching me a bunch of stuff about life, I was like, oh, if I was the mom, I'd be like, you better not fucking see Sensei anymore, bro.
She's like, he sounds like such a nice guy. Why don't you bring him over for dinner sometime?
I'm like, bro, why don't you have a seat? Fucking Chris Hansen Dateline To Catch a Predator shit. But luckily, it's not a pedophile.
Turns out it's a fox.
It's a nice fox that's showing Ame the ways of the wilderness.
Yeah, with his knowing yellow golden eyes. And he takes...
I also, sorry to interrupt you. I also love that Hana's like, thanks so much for showing my son stuff. I brought you some, like, snacks.
It was cute because it was, like, something on a plate and, like, a napkin underneath it and a peach. And the fox kind of just looks at her, grabs the peach, and, like, runs off. So Ame's learning all about... basically how to be a wild canine animal. And he says that the sensei is sort of like the ruler of the mountain. He's the king of the jungle, so to speak.
Yeah, or he's at least the protector of it, and like he makes sure everything's in balance or whatever.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, Yuki's in school. Oh, before we go there, the way that they show the passage of time in school was really cool too.
So great.
They just like flip back and forth between these classrooms.
It's like it's as if it's on a track and it's a dolly shot and it moves quite smoothly between the two rooms. And they show that now they're in third grade and you can see which one's in the classroom, and they'll have some kind of phrase like, we can figure it out together, all these like school
corny school phrases that would be like on a motivational poster at school and all that shit.
And then it moves back and then you'll see one of the other ones and see how much older they've gotten at that point.
I thought that was really creative and I really enjoyed that. But meanwhile, while Ame is learning from Mr. Fox, Yuki's in school and a new kid transfers in, and he goes up to her and he's like, yo, you smell like dog. Do you have a dog? And Yuki's like, no. He's like, because you smell like you do. And she's like, ugh. She goes and like she washes her hands, And then this kid just like harasses her basically.
She's like sniffing herself in the bathroom, like, do I
Yeah, I
smell
felt
like
really
dog?
bad then.
Yeah.
I felt really
Especially because
bad.
he's been working so hard to kind of shed that wolf identity as well. And
Yeah.
starts to feel like she's being accepted. And then getting that comment is just like, oh, it's just that silver bullet
Mm-hmm. Silver bullet.
for
Werewolf.
a werewolf. Mm.
Wow, you're getting in on this. You were trashing me earlier, and now you can't get enough. But yeah, and then the kid, he's basically following her around, being like, "Hey, why don't you talk to me? Like, how come everyone always says that you're so nice, but you're being so mean to me and you're ignoring me?" And she's like, "I don't want to talk to you." And her whole thing is like, her mom gave her a chant like, you need to be a human until you get home. So she has this chant like, I'm gonna be a girl all the way home until I get home or whatever. And then eventually this kid like corners her, and he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why won't you be nice to me? And then she fucking wolfs out, slashes him in the face, and mama gets called to the principal's office. And then the kid that she slashed, his name is Sohei, he basically covers for her. He's like, she didn't do it, a wolf did it. And then the mom is like, oh, fuck.
Because the mom's bowing that whole time, but you can see her eyes and like her profile, and you can see the eyes get real wobbly.
Mhm.
Those shine marks get real big. That
Mhm.
mouth starts to open up.
Yeah, but yeah, he covers for her, and like she gets in a little bit of trouble, and then she's explained to the mom. She's like, I'm sorry, I tried, but this kid was being such a fucking asshole. He said I smelled like dog, and he was just following me in her. I wish that she would have. She actually didn't say that. She was just like, I'm sorry, I tried. I have a question for you about this movie.
Yeah.
Did you feel like there was a lot of conflict in this movie, or no?
I thought for Slice of Life that there's a decent number of conflicted moments, but I don't think there's a lot of. You mean like head-on conflict, like confrontation?
Yeah, I was watching this, and I thought that like the conflict of the movie, of the story, was just daily grind stuff. There wasn't like a villain or
Yeah, I agree.
anything. There wasn't anyone that was out to get them necessarily.
Yeah, I think there's the larger, sort of idea of the villain that we're all trying to not anger, which is everybody knowing about this situation, the fear that comes with that, which is kind of like, it's like prejudice is your villain,
Yeah, I was just waiting for them to turn into wolves in front of the townspeople, and then they'd be like, "Get out of here! What is
pitchforks
this?"
and
Yeah,
torches ablaze.
and there's one scene where Yuki is just like going back and forth between being a kid and the wolf in front of the neighbors, and I was like, "Bitch, what are you doing?"
Yeah, that's what the mom's face was saying at the time too.
Because it was like, didn't she tell you to not do this in front of people? Like,
And I
good
think that was
Lord.
before her mom let her go to school. And I think that there was like this mild, like, hey, I actually have the upper hand in this situation because there's something you don't want me to do, which I could totally do.
Okay,
And I
yeah.
kind of thought it was a subtle, that sort of thing happening.
I mean, for as weird as the story is, and like this woman mothering children who are also wolves, it felt very grounded in reality, and like, this is
Yeah.
real.
But I don't think it ever felt like, yeah, I always felt like the stakes were there and we were reminded what the stakes are, and the stakes felt real to me. I also think that, there's enough moments where there are these little dramas or these conflicts, and it's kind of giving credit to the everyday that, even in this magical situation, the things that come up and are the most dramatic and the scariest are, something that happened in school that we would have cried about as kids, which I think makes it relatable. But I don't think that like a major villain would have made sense in this film or fit into it. If one person in the town found out about it and was trying to rat them out and all that, like, to me, that wouldn't feel right for this movie.
Yeah, it would definitely make it a different movie.
Yeah.
But I was just, no one ever catches them being wolves.
Mhm.
They only, out themselves as wolves ever in this movie. And I don't think Ame ever does, but Yuki shows Sohei eventually, like, hey, remember that day when you got scratched in the ear and you said it was a wolf? That was actually me. And the way that they animated that was awesome.
Did you like that?
I thought that was really cool because it's like they're in the middle of like a rainstorm, hurricane type situation, and they open a window and the blinds blow in front of her face as she's like, it was me. And then when they return back to the window, she's the wolf. And then they blow in front of her face again. And then it comes back and she's a person again. And Sohei, like, after he gets scratched by her, all of a sudden he has like the hugest crush on her, which I was like, what?
I kind of thought that he started out having a crush on her.
Is that why he was harassing her or whatever?
Yeah, I was like, why would he have chased her for so long if he didn't have some interest?
I don't know. But for some reason, like, it just stuck with me. Like, I felt like all the characters that helped her, the townspeople that helped her start farming,
Helped Hana.
yeah, they kind of disappear. And I thought that they were going to play a bigger role at some point. But halfway, like, after their role is done of showing them how to farm, it was like, all right, there you go, lesson learned. And then they're just gone.
Well, I don't know if I agree because I feel like, you see the whole, we all help each other.
Yeah.
She was encouraged to grow more than she needed so that she could take it to her neighbors and her neighbors could give her something that, she didn't have. And we see that explored a lot, and then also see the daughter of Nirasaki come and speak with her, a time or two.
Yeah.
But then I think the story kind of goes away from being Hana's story, and it's really about these coming of age moments for Yuki and Ame. And it would be hard to like bring the farmers into those moments, but it also takes up a good chunk of the last part of the film.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Do you want to hear something that really bothered me?
Yeah, sure.
So when the rains are starting and Ame's getting concerned and he's going out into the rain and seeing, felled trees and seeing, a nest of baby birds that are all dead on the ground and all these other things, he comes back one day and is saying that Sensei his leg is injured and that he thinks he's going to die. Why doesn't he make an attempt to save him? Why do either of them not make any kind of an attempt? And she doesn't even suggest like, well, can we save him? Can we go and get him and like take him somewhere?
Yeah, he's pretty much like, he's a goner.
Yeah, he's like, his leg is hurt.
And
he's
I'm
a
gonna
goner.
replace him. I am now the king of the wild.
Like,
I think that was just kind of like he's injured and like other animals don't try and save other animals when they're in nature. Like if a real wild fox like hurt his leg and there was another wild fox, they'd be like, hey, sucks for you, buddy, see ya. It's survival
so you think
of the
that
fittest.
it's showing how much more like an animal than a human he's become? Because if he was more human, he might try to save the fox.
Yes.
And as being more in line with nature, he's like, this is what nature wants.
Yes.
And now it is my calling to step up. Okay.
And also a power-hungry maniac. He's like, this is my chance to prove myself as king of this mountain.
Why wouldn't the mom suggest they try and help?
Yeah, I think the mom was kind of like, she didn't want him to go hang out with Sensei anymore anyway. So when he's like, Sensei is dying, she's probably like, good. Now you can stay and be my son now. And that's not what he's thinking at all. He's thinking like, no, I need to go be the king of this mountain to bring balance to everything. Sensei taught me everything that he knows so that I could take his spot one day.
Mm-hmm.
I think the mom was thinking like, oh, good, he's dead, so that part's over.
That makes her sound awful,
that
though.
bad influence on you. Dude, she didn't say like, I don't want you to hang out with that guy anymore, basically.
Yeah. Towards the end of this film, when they've kind of chosen their paths and Yuki has gone off to junior high, which apparently has dorms, which is cool.
Boarding school.
Yeah. And Ame's run off into the wild to be keeper of the balance of the mountain. I have never had a deeper empathy or understanding of empty nest syndrome.
Me too.
Right?
I got real sad.
I got so sad.
I felt so sad for Hana. I was like, man, this is... Because, then you're watching it and you think about your childhood and what your parents must have gone through and stuff. And it just made me like, oh, man, that's brutal. It's got to be brutal. And she's just like looking at the license of her dead wolf husband.
Which is like the only picture she has of him.
Yeah, and she's like, you know what? I think I did a good job raising our kids. Now, the question that I have is, so Ame runs off into the woods at 10. No one asks where that motherfucker went. Like, she was worried about child services in the city. Like, if your son disappears at 10, even if it's not the big city living, the townspeople are going to be like, yeah, whatever happened? Even like the kid just stopped going to school at a certain point.
That's true. I was wondering about the truancy issues.
Nobody was ever like, what the fuck is going on with this? Nobody's going to ask, but like, whatever happened to your son? What is she going to say? Like, oh, he died.
I think you could get away with he went back to live with his dad in the city. Maybe if they don't know, or he lived with relatives. Like, there's something that she could definitely cover up him not being there anymore. I think it would be harder to explain the kid not going to school and no one asking about that. Or I don't know what truancy laws are like in Japan, but
yeah, I mean, I was like, they brushed it off. She was talking to the townspeople at a certain point, like, yeah, he doesn't want to really go to school. And Nirasaki is like, well, Thomas Edison didn't go to school. Some other person, and I didn't either, and I turned out fine.
Yeah.
So he doesn't need school. And I was like, yeah, but I don't know if that's legal. Like, I was like, man, she's worried about fucking the Child Protective Services coming for her. They're really going to come for her after he just vanishes.
Right? Yeah. I also, maybe it would have been a good idea to have like the townspeople kind of come back a little bit in the end, so you can kind of feel like, oh, she still has the community.
That's what I'm saying.
Who's here for her. That's kind of a moment when that could have been brought back in. And the other thing that bugged me was, she hears him howling and she's like, oh, yay, my son is still alive and he's out there. I was like, does he not come visit her?
That's what I was thinking too. Like,
what a dick.
What a piece of shit son. Like, he could come back, like, at least once a week and be like, hey, what's up, mom?
Once a month. Even once a month, maybe.
The owls are acting a fool, Fucking just, it's your mom, Be a little fucking, whatever.
And it's not like, things ended with his mom badly or they had a tumultuous relationship or there's, but he's like fully committed. Like, both of her kids, their dad did this thing where he seemed to like be a fairly high functioning human and exist in the human world, but he still hunted and he still did wolf things. He seemed to kind of strike the balance.
Yeah.
These kids did not strike the balance. Like, they went
like, you're
100% one way or the other way. Yeah.
Here's what I was kind of thinking with the townspeople, because they, like I said, I felt like they just kind of vanished after they teach her how to farm or whatever. I was thinking there's a line in there where they're talking about how her crops aren't hurt by the animals. And there's a little bit of a hint towards like, oh, maybe it's because my kids are wolves and they're protecting them.
I think that is what that's supposed to be.
I was thinking that, maybe the townspeople would find out that they're wolves and then they were like, these are our wolves too. Like, like if anyone came to like take them away and like, no, we love these are our wolves, or we protect the wolves protect us.
That's in Wolf Children too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
In pre-production.
Yeah, I'm going to write that. Nobody steal my idea. Anyway.
Trademark, copyright me.
Yeah, this is dated, so it's out there in the world, so I have the copyright. I'll prove it in a court of law.
It's just gonna be some fan fiction PDF.
It wasn't like they were accepted for what they are or anything. It's like we didn't get that closure in what Hana was most worried about, like being accepted by I don't know. I don't know what I'm
But
talking
yeah,
about anymore. You know what I mean?
I kind of get what you mean. You know, and I don't think that. I mean, Hana was saying that their father was taught to keep his wolf shtick a secret.
Shtick.
I couldn't think of a good word, but he was told never to reveal it.
Yeah.
And he was raised that way, and so she raised him the way he was raised to, you know, keep it a secret, especially to protect their kind, because the fact that, you know, they might be the last of their kind.
Yeah.
For now. So I think that she always was afraid of that and didn't want that for them and didn't want that to be revealed. So I don't know. I don't know whose dream it would be to be fully out in the open and to be seen. And I don't know what kind of message that sends, but it might be a somewhat realistic message and less of a Disney message.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just happy that when I was 10 years old, I chose the human path rather than the wolf path. I think the wolf path would have been tough.
I don't know, you might be a sexy wolf.
I might be a sexy wolf. You never fucking know. I'm a pretty sexy human now. Don't worry about it. What did you think of the animation? Like, we talked about it briefly. Like, we touched on it a couple times. But,
yeah, I mean, the CGI moments with the POV, I thought in some ways were very cool to take you into the moment of what it might be like, you know, just the elation of like running through the wild and like see a tree, avoid a tree, going through the snow. But that did make me feel slightly sick.
Oh, that's what made... Okay.
Yeah.
All of the characters have very thin outlines, too. I don't know if you noticed that, but all of the outlines are very thin, whereas I feel like usually in anime they're a bit bolder, and they just are very muted, I feel. And I don't know if I like it.
I occasionally will look at something in his films and think that the cell shading of the characters looks too cartoonish against how incredibly beautiful this background is and how detailed. Sometimes I feel like I can almost see a cell in front of an oil painting, you know? And occasionally it'll take me out for a second. But for the most part, I like the character design. I like how they look much more than I've liked some other character designs. And there's some random bits of animation. Like there's a moment with the sensei and Ame, and they're looking over kind of a crater lake in the mountains.
Yeah.
And the way the light is shining off of that lake and how they animate what wind looks like when it goes across water was so spectacularly on point.
That was pretty cool. He's definitely got a style, you know? I
Yes.
give it to him on that. I liked the soundtrack. I thought it fit very well with the movie. It's a lot of like swells, like a lot of like wonderment and swell of emotion and stuff. It didn't like stand out at all to me, but it fit this movie, I felt.
Yeah. And again, there were, you know, a couple of moments where it just disappeared, you know, in some of those sort of dream sequences that Hana has. And also when she comes face to face with the bear in the woods, and all of the music just goes away suddenly, and all you can hear is just, well, you can hear everything. You can hear snap of a branch, you can hear all this stuff, and you're just so aware of how much noise she's making, and it just gives you this moment of like,
you can hear,
could you imagine?
You can hear all of her anime gasps.
But yeah, there was only one part where I listened to the soundtrack and I was like, these vocals are really strange. and then it kind of changed. It was fine. It was during a scene like really early on, I think, when they're at like a kitchen table, and there's some really odd vocals that come up. But other than that, yeah, I thought it worked well.
How'd you like the voice acting?
I thought it was fine. I thought it was good. You know, sometimes like the kids' voices got slightly annoying, but they're kids and they're going to say annoying things and they have to be like a little bit whiny. And how are you going to make that always great to listen to?
Yeah. The only one that I really didn't like was the wolf dad. I thought that his voice was weird.
Oh, yeah?
His voice was so bizarre to me. But everybody else...
Was it wolf-like?
No. I don't know. It was just weird.
I actually did really hate the voice of the baby bear cubs.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Now that you reminded me, yeah, that was awful.
It started out like screaming children and then ended up like something else. I don't know if I wrote it down, but I was like, that was just like a Willy Wonka of sounds. It started out as one sound and then just morphed into another.
That'd be hilarious if that's exactly what bear cubs sound like.
Right.
It might be, but to me, it sounded like someone just in a studio. Someone would be like, we need to have bear cubs sound like something. Just make up whatever you think a bear cub sounds like, and then a person's just like,
Like, I would start out kind of like a baby crying, then end up like a peacock. I don't know.
And they're like, yeah, that's good. We'll call that a day. I'm like, yeah, that nailed it. Bear cub.
Yeah, sure.
What do you think that sounds like? Oh, it sounds like a bear cub. Well, let's go. It's like, I've fucking been here for 3 extra hours trying to figure this out. Yeah, but that's a wrap on the bear cubs. Oh, God. So.
I think it's that time.
I think it is that time to reveal what our amp goes up to out of 11. Do you want to go first?
No, you go first.
My amp goes up to 7.5 for Wolf Children.
I was going to say 8.5.
Yeah. There we go. I enjoyed it. I wish there was a little more. I don't know. The conflict didn't seem like too insane to me, and I thought that there might be a bit more. But for a slice of life movie about having children who are wolves,
that's kind of believable and very empathetic and is paced out well and actually does get you emotionally connected to characters.
Yeah, it was grounded, and it did get me, caring about the characters and curious about where they were going to go. Yeah, it was good. I would recommend it to sappy people. If people are like...
if they wanted the wambulance to come get them?
Yeah, if they want the wambulance, I would recommend it to people who are, they miss their parents, and they're the type of people that when they're depressed, they just put on depressing music and cry it out. I'd be like, oh, you're missing your parents right now? You should check out Wolf Children.
I feel like, if I had friends who were like a couple who, and it was like raining really hard that day, and the girlfriend asked me, hey, what should we watch on a rainy day that's chill but might actually be kind of thought-provoking in some way, this is a movie I would totally recommend.
Yeah, and that's great because we live in Los Angeles and almost never rains. So what you're saying is that you would never watch this again.
Or, during quarantine. But, if you had asked me, would you recommend Wolf Children to me, and I'd seen it and you hadn't, I don't know that I would recommend it to you.
Yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. I wouldn't if we weren't doing this podcast, I probably wouldn't have searched it out myself. I wouldn't have been like, single mom raising wolf kids. It sounds fucking cool. But we actually also both bought this. I don't regret owning it. If someone came over to my house and saw it on my shelf and they were like, you own Wolf Children? Pfft, I'd be like, hey, it's actually a pretty good movie. But
you get your wolf claw out and you smack him in the ear so hey.
Funny that you say that about the movie Wolf Children. Fucking turn into a big bad wolf. You know what I'm saying? Then that's the end of them.
All right. You've been listening to the Anime Movie Podcast.
Thank you for listening, everybody. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Anime Movie Podcast. You can follow us on Instagram at the Anime Movie Podcast, and you can reach out via email at theanimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell a friend. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.